بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن أحسن الكلام كلام الله وخير الهدى هدى محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وإن شر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. So we're still on the topic of Al-Qada wal-Qadar, and in last week's lesson we touched upon two issues, and the first issue was to do with Allah guiding and misguiding, Al-Hidayah wal-Idlal. And so we explained the meaning, what does that mean, and we said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He created His creation, He gave them the fitrah by which they recognize what's right and wrong. He gave them reason, aql. He gave them qudra by which they can act. Then He sent them books and messengers. He sent them books and messengers to show them the right way from the wrong way. With all of these things, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been just. He has established al-adl. He is just. From this point onwards, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will give further support and aid to some people, and He will leave others with what He has already established for them. So this additional support which He gives, this i'ana, this is the hidayah, this is the guidance. And as for those others whom He leaves to their own devices, then this is khidlan, this is abandonment. Right? So they are left to their own devices. So this is how we understand guidance and misguidance. So those whom Allah gives additional support, then this is from His fadl. This is from the, from the bounty and the favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And those whom He leaves to their own devices, then this is from the adl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we said that there is no injustice in anything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does, in nothing at all. Whether we are speaking of guiding someone or misguiding someone, or whether we are speaking of any other issue to do with what comes to a servant from the decrees of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second issue that we looked at was the issue of Allah's actions. Are there reasons or are there wisdoms behind Allah's actions? We said that this is one of the most crucial subject areas in the belief of a Muslim. And this is because this whole issue of Allah's actions, and is there a wisdom behind what Allah does, that this is a topic that itself enters into many other topics of creed, of belief. Not just belief, also issues that pertain to the Sharia as well, in Allah's commands. And for that reason, you see some of the scholars of Islam like Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn al-Qayyim saying that this is probably one of the most loftiest affairs of speaking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we said that Allah's actions, in all of Allah's actions, there is a wisdom and a reason. And in Arabic we said that this is known as al-hikmah wat-ta'leel. Al-hikmah wat-ta'leel. Al-hikmah meaning wisdom, and at-ta'leel meaning the justification or the reason behind something. So what this means is that we can understand this in two ways. The first way is, if we look at just the created things, we can see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He made water, He created water, and behind water there are many different reasons and wisdoms. Water, it quenches the thirst of man. Water, it allows plants to grow. Water, when it is in like the oceans and the rivers and the it has a great deal of force by which calamities can occur, or by which can be harnessed to generate power. Right? There are many different things that we can see that water, one created thing, there are so many things behind it, so many wisdoms and so many reasons or justifications behind it. So this is when we look just purely from the creational things that we see. And then the Sharia, Allah sending the messengers and the prophets, and then Him commanding and forbidding with certain things. In all of these things, when Allah prohibits, for example, drinking of alcohol, or when what is the purpose for that? Is to protect the lives and the minds of people. And when Allah commands with the salah, the prayer, what is the purpose behind that? The prayer prohibits from evil and shameful deeds. And so we can look at everything like this, and we can see that behind it there is actually a reason and a wisdom. So if we do not affirm these two things for Allah's actions, al-hikmah wa ta'leel, then we are lead to complete and utter misguidance. From that misguidance is, for example, that every action of Allah is totally neutral. Because if there isn't a wisdom and a reason behind Allah's action, in other words, why is it that Allah punishes some and rewards some? Why is it that Allah humiliates some and He honors some others? Right? In all these things we believe in wisdoms. If we don't believe in the wisdoms, it means every action of Allah is the same, is neutral. There's no wisdom or purpose behind it. This would mean that whether Allah punishes Iblis or rewards Iblis in paradise is the same. And likewise, if Allah was to reward a prophet or punish a prophet in the hellfire, it's all the same. Right? So we are led to some very evil consequences. And some other evil consequences is that some people believe, therefore, that everything that anyone does is liked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the Christian, when he commits his shirk, when the mushrik, when he commits his shirk, and the believer who worships Allah alone, all of this is the same. Right? Because everyone, there's no reason. So you understand that some of the, there are some evil consequences that come if we don't affirm the issue of wisdom behind Allah's actions. And this is a matter firmly established in the Quran with many proofs. But that was the issue that we looked at in the previous lesson. So today we're going to finish off, inshallah ta'ala, with looking at the issue of the writing in the Lawhul Mahfuz. This is today's topic, inshallah ta'ala. Al-Kitaba. Al-Kitaba, as you know, we said that Al-Qadr has 4 levels. Belief in Al-Qadr has 4 levels. Number 1, belief in the perfect knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of all things. Allah knows all things. Allah has eternal knowledge of all things. That was the first level of Al-Qadr. Second level, we said, is that this knowledge is written down in what we call the preserved tablet, Al-Lawhul Mahfuz. Al-Lawhul Mahfuz. So this knowledge is written down. And then after this, the third level is Allah's will, Allah's mashi'ah. Allah's will is all encompassing. Nothing happens in His creation except that He wills it to occur and He wishes it to occur. Now this is al-mashi'ah, the third level. And the fourth level is Allah creating, al-khalq, that He brings everything into existence. He is the one who brings everything into existence, whether we speak of actual things, entities, beings, or whether we speak of their actions. Allah brings the action of every being into existence. So all of this is from the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah brings it out into being at the appointed time. When it is written that it is to occur, then Allah will bring that thing into existence at the time that it was written that it will occur. He will will it, and then it will come into existence. These are the 4 levels of Al-Qadr, and each of them has their proof in the Quran. But today we are going to look at the issue of the writing, Al-Kitaba, the second level. So the levels of writing, we believe that there are 5 levels of writing. There are 5 levels of writing as it relates to Al-Qadr. Al-Qadr. So inshallah we're going to discuss each one of these. So the first level of writing is the greatest and the first of them, which is the writing in the Lawhul Mahfuz. Now this is the written record, if you like, or the written decree, which is that which is in the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah's knowledge of all events, of everything, from the creation of the creation to the establishment of the hour, All of that is written down. And this is what we call the Lawhul Mahfuz. And the proof for this is in the well-known hadith in which the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, قَدَّرَ اللَّهُ مَقَادِيرَ الْخَلَائِقِ قَبْلَ أن يخلق السماوات والأرض ب50 ألف سنة وكان عرشه على الماء, which translates as that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He decreed the decrees of all of creation 50,000 years before He created the heavens and the earth. And His throne was above the water. His throne was above the water. Now this hadith has many benefits for us. The first thing that we understand from this is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He made taqdeer, that He estimated and determined everything from the creation of the heavens and the earth to thereafter, 50,000 years before He even created the heavens and the earth. Right? So the decrees were already, written 50,000 years. Second thing that we learn from this is 50,000 years. This indicates, as Ibn Taymiyyah points out, rahimahullah, that there is a measure of time that already existed. A measure of time that already existed before the measure of time that we have with us. The measure of time that we have is by way of the earth, the moon, the sun, the night and the day. We have a measure of time. But this measure of time was already in existence before the creation of the heavens and earth. This establishes that there was another measurement of time, which Allah also created. Because our measurement of time is created. The sun, the earth, the moon, it's all created. And so the night and the day is also created. So the measurement of time is also created. And likewise, that measurement of time, that 50,000 years, Allah knows best how it is, then that too is a created measurement of time. The third thing that we understand from this is that there were things in existence before this creation, before this universe. Because in this hadith it mentions, وَكَانَ عَرْشُهُ عَلَى الْمَاءِ وَكَانَ عَرْشُهُ عَلَى الْمَاءِ, that His throne was above the water. So when He decreed the decrees of the creation, 50,000 years, then His throne was above the water. This shows that the throne existed and the water existed before the creation of this heavens and the earth. This shows there were things created already in existence. There were other things created before the creation of the heavens and the earth. And so from this we understand, the benefit that we take from this as well, is a refutation of those people, those Muslims, those ignorant Muslims, who come and try to argue that the heavens and the earth and this universe was the first thing that Allah created. This is wrong. This is incorrect. And, these people, they try to use philosophical, scientific, rational arguments upon this false premise, and they make mistakes. So anyway, that's a different subject altogether. But from this hadith we have a number of benefits, but the main issue that we have here is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He decreed everything. And in fact, in one version of this hadith it mentions kataba, He wrote. In this hadith it says qaddara, that He decreed and determined. In another version of the hadith it says kataba, that He wrote. Right? So this is the first and the greatest level of writing. This writing contains everything. Everything. This writing is unchangeable. This cannot change. Whatever is, because this is from the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Knowledge of Allah of everything that everyone is going to do. Of everything which is going to happen. And in the Lawhul Mahfuz, this is written down, so it can never be changed or altered. What is written will take place. Will take place. The second level of writing now, this is a level which took place at the creation of Adam alayhi salam. At the creation of Adam alayhi salam. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He created Adam alayhi salam, He took from the back of Adam alayhi salam all of his offspring. So he extracted all of the offspring of Adam, all of their souls. And then he decreed, or some were apportioned for the fire, and some were apportioned for paradise. And then this was written. And this is established in some ahadith of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And these ahadith are known as the ahadith of the mithaq. The ahadith of the mithaq. The ahadith of the covenant that was made. So here, when Allah extracted all of these souls from the back of Adam, and He made them testify, He made them to recognize that He is their Lord. And then He apportioned those destined for the fire and those destined for paradise. And they were written. And they were written as well. This is a second level of writing which relates to the people of paradise and the people of hellfire. And this took place after the creation of Adam alayhi salam. And this is mentioned by Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah in his book Shifa'ul Alil. Ibn al-Qayyim has actually a whole book written on the topic of Al-Qadr. And at the beginning of this book, he goes through the different types of writing that took place. And he mentions this from amongst them. He has a whole chapter dedicated to this. And he brings the ahadith on this topic. And these ahadith are acceptable. Shaykh al-Albani declares them to be Hasan, they're acceptable. And so in these ahadith, we understand that this now, the people apportioned for hellfire and paradise, that this is written after the creation of Adam alayhi salam. This is the second level of Al-Qadr. And this relates to actually who is an inhabitant of paradise and who is an inhabitant of hellfire, meaning their names. Okay. The third level is of the writing is what we call the Taqdeer al-Umari. Taqdeer al-Umari. This is now for each and every single individual in his mother's womb. Right, in his mother's womb. And this is taken from the hadith of Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma. You know this hadith in which the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, indeed the creation of one of you is brought together in the womb of his mother for 40 days in the form of such and such. And then another 40 days in the form of an alaqa. And then another 40 days in the form of and so you know the hadith. And then it mentions in the course of this hadith that after those 120 days an angel is sent, and that angel is ordered to write 4 things. The 4 things. And those 4 things are male or female, whether he is a male or a female. The second thing is to write his sustenance, his rizq. All of the rizq that he is going to receive in his lifetime. And the third thing is his lifespan. What is his lifespan? And the fourth thing is, meaning how long will he live? And the fourth thing is whether he's happy or whether he's wretched. Meaning, is he from the people of paradise or is he from the people of hellfire? Right? So these 4 things, the angel is ordered to write down in a scroll. So the angel has a scroll and this is written down. This now is the third. Now this taqdeer here relates to the whole of a person's life. This qadr now is unique to an individual's life. This taqdeer is for each individual's life, and this writing that the angel writes, that the angel has in the scroll, is for that, obviously for that specific individual. This is the third level of kitaba. And the fourth level of writing is the writing which is the al-kitaba, or the taqdeer, which is sanawi. Sanawi means on a yearly basis. On a yearly basis. So there is a taqdeer which is written on a yearly basis. And this, of course, as you know, this refers to Laylatul Qadr. Laylatul Qadr. And This is referred to in the Quran in Surah Ad-Dukhan. Surah Ad-Dukhan, Surah 44, right at the very beginning of this surah. Surah number 44, verses, the first 3 or 4 verses, we see Allah says, Hamim wal kitabil mubin. Hamim, by the clear, conspicuous book. Inna anzalnahu fi laylatin mubarakah. Inna kunna munzirin. Indeed, we reveal this book, meaning this book, on a blessed night. Indeed, we are those who warn. Fiha yufraqu kullu amrin hakim. So on that night, on which this Quran was revealed, which is Laylatul Qadr, Allah says, every noble affair is determined. Every affair is determined, is distinguished and separated out, meaning that everything is determined in terms of the decrees. What does this mean? This means that the decrees of every year are written down on this night. Right? So the angels are ordered to write, they are inspired by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to write down all of the occurrences for the next year in this level. Right? So this is now the 4th level. So the angels, they write down everything that is to happen with respect to everybody and everything. And they write all of that down. And so what happens here is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He inspires them to write things which are in the Lawhul Mahfuz. Right? So they write this down, but it's written in a certain way. I'll explain to you a bit later on, inshallah ta'ala. And so the angels have with them scrolls in which it is written what will happen to an individual for the next year. However, what they write down is written in a certain way. Right? And that I will explain to you inshallah after we finish the five levels. So keep that in mind. The 5th level of taqdeer is the qadr or the taqdeer which is daily, on a daily basis. On a daily basis. And the scholars of Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah, they have taken as a proof for this the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Ar-Rahman. Surah Ar-Rahman, Surah number 55, verse number 29, in which Allah says, Kulla yawmin huwa fi sha'n. Kulla yawmin huwa fi sha'n. Which means, every single day Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is engaged in some affair, in the affairs. And the scholars of tafsir and the companions like Ibn Abbas, they explain what this ayah means. It means that every single day Allah is providing for someone. Every single day Allah is guiding someone. Every single day Allah is giving life. Every single day Allah is guiding or misguiding or honoring or humiliating. Right? So this means that every single day there are decrees for every single day. And then Allah brings that into existence. Right? So this is the 5th level of taqdeer. The taqdeer which is on a daily basis. So in fact this is the 5th type of writing or taqdeer. Okay, now that we understand all of this, so we have first of all the kitaba, the first kitaba, which is 50,000 years before the creation of the heavens and the earth. This is Al-Lawhul Mahfuz. We have the second writing, which relates to the inhabitants of paradise and the inhabitants of hellfire. And this is at the creation of Adam alayhi salam. Allah took all of the souls that were ever that were created, took them all out, and made them testify as to His oneness and His rububiyyah, and then apportioned some for hellfire and some for paradise, and their names were written. This one paradise, this one hellfire. That's the second level of writing. The third level of writing is for every individual his own scroll that the angel writes 4 things: male, female, rizq, sustenance, lifespan, whether wretched or happy. The 4th one is the yearly qadr, which is Laylatul Qadr, everything that will happen in that year. And the angels are inspired by Allah to write down those decrees. And those decrees that they write are themselves taken in the origin from what is in the Lawhul Mahfuz. And the fifth one is that which is daily, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on a daily basis, that, as we said, there is a taqdeer that Allah brings into existence on a daily basis. Okay, now that we understand all of these levels of writing, the issue that we want to understand really today is, how do we understand the fact that on the one hand we see that we believe that nothing that Allah has written will change, right? So whatever Allah has written in the Lawhul Mahfuz, it will take place, it will not, everything will take place. But on the other hand, we see there are certain ahadith that the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam has mentioned. So from those ahadith is that the Messenger said, "Man sarrahu an yubsata lahu fi rizqihi wa yunsa'a lahu fi umrihi wa fi atharihi falyasil rahimah," which means that whoever wishes for his rizq to be increased, whoever wants his rizq to be increased, meaning the food and the provision and the offspring and the wealth, and likewise whoever wants his life to be increased, then let him keep the ties of kinship. Let him keep the family ties. Let him keep the family ties. And likewise, we see there are many variations of this hadith as well. In another hadith we see, "Innal abd," indeed the servant, he is prevented from rizq on account of a sin that he falls into. If he falls into a sin, the rizq is removed or decreased for him. So how do we understand this hadith? Because these hadith appear to indicate that what is decreed can change, that what is written can change. How do we understand these ahadith? And how do we understand this apparent conflict between the fact that everything is written and the fact that things, apparently by way of what this hadith is saying, that it can change? And likewise in the Quran, there is a verse in the Quran in Surah Ar-Ra'd, Surah 13, verse number 39. And in this surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, يَمْحُ اللَّهُ مَا يَشَاءُ وَيُثْبِتُ وَعِنْدَهُ أُمُّ الْكِتَابِ, which means that Allah, He erases what He wills. Allah erases what He wills, and He confirms what He wills. But with Him is the mother of the book, the Ummul Kitab. Ummul Kitab. Right, so what does this ayah mean? What does this verse mean? That Allah erases some things and He confirms some things, yet with Him is the mother of the book. So what is the explanation for, how do we reconcile all of these things together? So the scholars, they have a number of ways of explaining what this means. So one of the ways this is explained is, we said there are five levels of writing, right? So some scholars say, like Sheikh Salih al-Sheikh, he explains that the first three levels are unchangeable. The first three levels are unchangeable. What are those three levels? The Lawhul Mahfuz, the 50,000 years before Allah created the creation. Why? Because that is the ilm of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The ilm of Allah of all future events, that cannot change. Because that, what is in the Lawhul Mahfuz, is Allah's knowledge, prior knowledge of everything that will take place. So clearly, that cannot be subject to change. And likewise, the writing of those who are in paradise and those who are in hellfire, that does not change. And thirdly, that which relates to the the whole life of an individual, male, female, his level of rizq, when he will die, his appointed time, and likewise, whether he's in paradise or hellfire, that does not change either. But what does change is the remaining two levels of taqdeer or kitaba, which is that which the angels write on Laylatul Qadr for the following year. Now what does this mean? This means, as the scholars explain, that when the angels are inspired to write by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the decrees of the whole year, of the following year on Laylatul Qadr, the way it is written is, they are told, the way that they write it is, for example, that if this servant, for argument's sake, if he makes dua, and if he does righteous deeds, and if he does such and such, then his life will expand. Then he will die on such and such. And if he doesn't, then he will die on such and such. In other words, what the angels write is written like it's, in Arabic we use the word mu'allaq. Mu'allaq means that it is suspended. Right? It's based upon something else. Right? So the angels write this down. This servant will die on such and such a day, or this servant will be married, or this servant will do such and such if he does such and such, if he makes dua, if he does righteous deeds, if he does such and such. Right? So it's written in this manner. So this, but this is, so in other words, here now the angels have a type of knowledge with them. Their knowledge that they have based upon what they have written is not like the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not like the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah knows that this individual, exactly what he will do. It's written in the Lawhul Mahfuz. Right? Allah knows exactly what this person will do. Allah knows whether this person will make dua or not. Allah knows whether this person will do righteous deeds or not. Allah knows at what point this person will die. Allah knows the effect of all of these actions this person has on his eventual, length of his life and his rizq and everything else. Allah knows all of that. But the angels, when they write when they are inspired to write what is in the Lawhul Mahfuz, it is written in a form which is mu'allaq, meaning it is like depending on something else. So the angels write this down. This is what is written as the decrees for the next of the whole year. That this person will die this year if such and such and such. This person, his lifespan will be increased if such and such and such and such. This person will have a child if such and such and such and such. Right? And this person will be guided, this like non-Muslim here, will be guided if such and such and such and such. Right? So now the angels have these scrolls with them in which the decrees of the next year are written in, which are mu'allaq, meaning that they are not absolute, but they are open and suspended and conditional and tied to other things. Right? So now, when we read this hadith, when the messenger says, whoever is pleased that his rizq should be increased, or his lifespan should be increased, let him keep the ties of kinship. What is this referring to? This is referring to not what is in the Lawhul Mahfuz, but what is in the hands of the angels, the scrolls of the angels. Right? So, if this person actually now works righteous deeds, keeps the ties of kinship, then his lifespan will actually increase. Right? And so therefore Allah will either confirm what is in the scrolls of the angels, or He will erase what is in the scrolls of the angels. Right? Based upon His perfect knowledge and what is in the Lawhul Mahfuz. Right? So we see that there isn't any conflict between the fact that there are some types of writing which are written in the Lawhul Mahfuz which will never change, and there are some types of writing which are subject to change. Either they will be confirmed, or they will be blotted out or removed. So this is one way that the scholars, they explain this issue of how do we understand the fact that the rizq of a person can change and the lifespan of a person can change. In reality, in the knowledge of Allah, it does not change. In the Lawhul Mahfuz, it does not change. Right? All the things that affect your lifespan are themselves written in the Lawhul Mahfuz. Do you understand? So in the Lawhul Mahfuz, it is written that this person will make dua, he will keep the ties of kinship, he will use all of the ways and means to avoid disease, to be healthy. And so because of all of these, his lifespan will be, for example, 89 years, for argument's sake. All of that is written. His eventual point of death, his lifespan, and all the ways and means he will take which lead to his lifespan being increased, or to being what it actually is, not increased, but to be what it actually is, right? Because those ways and means they had an effect. Now remember, this goes back to our discussion of the asbab. If you remember, we discussed the issue of the asbab, the ways and the means. The ways and the means, right? And that all of these are from al-qadr. And this is how we understand all of these issues are connected. So this is what is written in the Lawhul Mahfuz. It is from the ilm of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But as for what is with the angels, then they don't have the ilm of Allah. They only have that knowledge, and they only write that knowledge, which is in that mu'allaq form. Okay, so this is one way of explaining here. We have some texts here from some of the scholars. From them, Ibn Hajar, rahimahullah, he says, he explains this hadith in relation to this hadith. He says, it can be said to an angel, for example, that the lifespan of so-and-so is 100 years if he keeps the ties of kinship. Right? So if he makes it his habit to keep the ties of kinship with his family and his parents and relatives and so on and so forth, then his lifespan will be for 100 years. And if he doesn't, then his lifespan will be 60 years. However, in the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah already knows whether this individual will keep the ties of kinship or whether he will break the ties of kinship. So that which is in the knowledge of Allah, that will never change, because Allah already knows. That ilm will never change. That is, fixed and determined. But however, what the angel knows, that which the angel knows, and that which the angel has been inspired with, and that which the angel writes, then this is the writing and the taqdeer in which there can be increase and where there can be decrease. Increase in a person's life, increase in a person's rizq, or decrease in a person's life, decrease in a person's rizq. So this is what is meant. Ibn Hajar says, rahimahullah, when Allah says, يَمْحُ اللَّهُ مَا يَشَاءُ وَيُثْبِتُ وَعِنْدَهُ أُمُّ الْكِتَابِ, that Allah erases whatever He wills, meaning from the scrolls of the angels, and He confirms what He wills, meaning that which is in the scroll of the angels, which agrees with what is in the Lawhul Mahfuz. وَعِنْدَهُ أُمُّ الْكِتَابِ, but with Him is the mother of the book, meaning the Lawhul Mahfuz, in which everything is written. So in other words, the erasing and the confirming is in relation to what is in the knowledge of the angels. And what is in the book, the Ummul Kitab, that of course is Allah's ilm, Allah's eternal all-encompassing knowledge. So obviously there can be nothing that erases that. And so therefore we see that there are two types of qada. The qada, which is what we call the qada, al-qada al-mubram, which is the firmly fixed, determined qada that never changes. And that's in the ilm of Allah. And the qada which is mu'allaq, the qada which is in the hands of the angel, meaning written and in the knowledge of the angels, and that is subject to change. So this is the issue then, the final issue that we wanted to discuss, and this really brings us to a close on the discussion of al-qada wal-qadar. And so inshallah we'll end our session here today. This was really the final issue that we wanted to discuss. And if there are any questions on this topic or anything that's basically preceded, then we'll have a few minutes for that. Otherwise we can close our lesson here, inshallah ta'ala. Huh? Say that again? Okay. The last bit. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and from them two, the way I've understood it is, so it could be one of two reasons, like for example, with regards to that hadith,
Yeah.
someone's lifespan,
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, if he does, it's 100 years, and if he doesn't,
Yeah.
60.
Yeah.
So that's what it's referring to, so it could be either one or two.
Yeah.
One of these two.
No, what we're saying here is that in the knowledge of Allah, so let's say in the book that is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Ummul Kitab, the Lawhul Mahfuz, right? So let's say we take an individual right? His name is Abdullah, right? He's born in, let's say, 2000, right? And in the knowledge of Allah, this Abdullah will die in 2070. He will live for 70 years, right? And it is in the knowledge of Allah that this Abdullah, that he will die at 70, his lifespan will be 70, because through his life he took certain ways and means, right? He took certain ways and means. He did things, right, righteous deeds and whatever else, that made his life 70 years as opposed to 50 years, right? So all of that is in the ilm of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and nothing is going to change in that. So his rizq is determined in the knowledge of Allah, in the book, in the writing, in the Lawhul Mahfuz. His lifespan, his righteous deeds, his evil deeds, and also the effect all of those things have on him as well, right? That's all written in the Lawhul Mahfuz, right? So what the Shaykh was explaining is that where we speak of this hadith where it says whoever wants his lifespan to be increased or his rizq to increase, let him do such and such, right? In reality, his lifespan isn't really going to increase or decrease, because his lifespan is already determined, right? It's going to be 70 years, right? But what's happening here is that in that hadith it mentions an action or a cause or a sabab, right? Which is keeping the ties of kinship, right? Allah has made that tied to an increase in a person's life, right? Just like, for example, if you eat poison, you're going to die. And if you don't eat poison, you're not going to die, right? So if someone eats poison, he's going to die at the age of 20, and he's not going to live till 70, right? So now, but it's already in the ilm of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what ways and means this person is going to take, what actions he's going to do. That's already in the ilm of Allah. Allah knows that Abdullah is going to die in 2070, right? Allah knows all of his actions and the impact of his actions upon this individual's lifespan and his rizq and everything else. So now what we said, that on Laylatul Qadr, what happens is that the angels, when they write the decrees for the following year, right? When they write those decrees are not written in the same way that they are written in the Lawhul Mahfuz, but they are written in a conditional sense. So in the Lawhul Mahfuz, it says, this Abdullah will do such and such and such and such, then we'll keep the ties of kinship, that will increase that will have an effect on increasing his lifespan, whatever. So all of those actions he will take and their effects upon him are all written up until he dies at the age of 70. Right? That's all written in the Lawhul Mahfuz. But then here, when the angels write down in the scrolls, in the Laylatul Qadr, then what they write down is that this person, if he does such and such, this will happen. Or if he does such and such, his lifespan will decrease. Or if he commits such and such a sin, his rizq will increase. Or if he does such and such righteous deeds, his life will increase by such and such, by whatever amount, whatever. So what they are given, what they have, is not the actual fixed, determined ilm that is with Allah. They are given things in a conditional sense, right? So now they have a writing with them. In this book it says, now this is Abdullah, okay, in this Abdullah, in the next year, right, if he does such and such, his life will increase by, a couple of years. And if he does such and such, his life will decrease by a couple of years, right? So this now is in the ilm of the angels, right? So nothing is really changing except what is written down by the angels in the ilm of the angels, right? If you think about it, because when Abdullah increases the ties of kinship, right, that's already written in the Lawhul Mahfuz, right? His life isn't really increasing beyond what Allah's already decreed it, right? But what's happening is that those things he's acting upon are actually a means of his life increasing, because Allah created the asbab, Allah created the ways and the means, right? So yes, when he kept the ties of kinship, his lifespan did actually increase. It led to an increase in his lifespan. His lifespan was 70 as opposed to being 50 if he didn't keep the ties of kinship. It's just like saying, if Abdullah ate poison at the age of 40, he died at 40, right? So the fact that he didn't take the poison led to his life increasing to 70, right? That's exactly what it means, and that's written in the Lawh al-Mahfuz, that Abdullah was given a choice, to eat poison. He did eat the poison, right? And so he lived up until the age of 70. So the asbab, the ways and the means in between, right, they are written in the Lawh al-Mahfuz as well, right? And so what's really happening is that as it relates to the ilm of Allah, no one's lifespan is increasing or decreasing. Everyone's lifespan is at the appointed time, right? But because we affirm the ways, the asbab and the ways and the means, right? Then, like if I said to you, if you eat healthily, you will live longer. Is that not true? Of course it is, right? If you eat poorly, you won't live longer. If you eat bad, if you eat harmful things, if you eat bad, whatever, then obviously that will have an impact on your health, and you will die from disease earlier, and you won't live that long. So is all of this correct or not? Of course it's correct. So we know that the ways and means and the actions that we perform, right, they clearly have an impact upon our lives, on the age of the life, and the quality of the life. All of this has a definite impact, right? So this shows that the increase and decrease in life is something that is true and real, and there are reasons behind it, like eating well, not exposing oneself to danger, not doing dangerous things, doing those things in the Sharia, like keeping the ties of kinship, having taqwa. All of these things actually really do increase a person's life, right? Because these are from the asbab and the ways and the means that Allah have made to have such an effect, right? So on the one hand, we accept that life can increase and decrease because of the asbab and the ways and means. But on the other hand, in Allah's ilm, all of that is known and written already. That this servant will do such and such, he won't do such and such, he won't do such, and the effect all of that will have on his lifespan. But when we're speaking of this hadith, and Allah erasing something and confirming something, right, this is what the angels have written down now. Right? So the angel has with him that in this year, if this servant does such and such and such and such and such, then his life will increase by 6 months. Just by way of example. And if this person does such and such, that's what they have with them. Right? Whereas with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his ilm is complete and everything in the book is complete. Right? So now, it's already in the ilm of Allah that Abdullah will actually do such and such. He will keep the ties of kinship. Right? That's already in the ilm of Allah. And his life will therefore increase. Right? So his life will increase by way of the actions that he performed, right? It will be 70 as opposed to something else. So when we say that what is with the angels, that when they write that down, and when we say that Allah erases something and confirms something, that's what the angels write down. So I don't know whether that's made anything clear or not, or yeah. Yeah. Allah already knows what ways and means a person is going to use, right? But to the angels, like if this person, in this year, if he, exposes himself to some danger, if he jumps off a bridge, for example, into a river, and dives into a river, then his lifespan will be cut short. And if he doesn't do that, then his lifespan will be increased, right? And if this person keeps the ties of kinship, then his lifespan will be increased. And if he doesn't, that's what the angels have with them. In other words, this person will die if such and such, right? And this person won't die if such and such, right? They have this. This is what the angels have. They don't have the actual ilm which is in the Lawh al-Mahfuz, right? So then a person will do, if he does that thing that's written in there, then that decree that is in with the angels, then obviously that decree now is confirmed. Right. So, is there anything of it that's not clear? Yeah.
50,000 years before the creation.
Yeah.
That 50,000 years isn't the same as the 50,000
No,
years.
it's not. No, it's not. Yeah.
Is there
it's
an
different.
indication of how
we don't know what the measure of time is for that. Ibn Taymiyyah mentions in one of his books, Dar al-Ta'arud al-Aql wal-Naql, in this book, he discusses this issue and he says that that measurement of time of 50,000 years is by some other created bodies that we don't know of. Just like our measurement of time, the month, the year, is known by the phases of the moon and whatever else. And likewise, that 50,000 years is another measurement of time, and Allah knows best what its basis is. But Ibn Taymiyyah says that there are some other bodies in existence, right, through which their motion, there's a measurement of time, and Allah knows best what that is. He mentions that in Dar al-Ta'arud al-Aql wal-Naql. So in reality, a person's lifespan, see, this is where our discussion of the asbab comes in, right? The Salaf, they used to make this statement. They used to say that to deny the asbab, in other words, to deny that the ways and means are in fact ways and means, which means, for example, to deny the fact that water quenches thirst, right? That this is a deficiency in aql. This is a deficiency in reason. And then they said to rely purely on the asbab alone, right? So to depend only on the ways and means, like for example, yes, if I work, I will become rich, right? Meaning just because of the effort that you put in. No, because this comes down to many other issues which are in the control of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So to think that the asbab in and of themselves, on their own, is going to give you what you want, this is like a type of shirk. Al-iltifat ila al-asbab, shirk. Right? So to turn and depend only on the asbab, this is now shirk. And then to reject the asbab altogether, and to say, no, I'm not going to take the ways and means. Right? So no, I'm not going to work to earn a living. I'm not going to do such and such. I'm not going to eat to be healthy. To deny them altogether, this now is a revilement upon the Sharia. You're reviling the Sharia because the Sharia has come and told you to use the asbab. The Sharia has told you to use the ways and means. To use medicinal treatment if you are ill. Right? Because they are from the ways and means. To earn a living through the ways and means which are halal. So all of these are from the ways and means. Right? So to deny them is a revilement of the Sharia because the Sharia commanded them. So the point that we're making is that when we speak of this topic, the asbab, the ways and the means, right, they are part and parcel of al-qadr. Right? And by way of them we understand the issue of al-qadr. So when we say, for example, that Abdullah, if he ties the ties of kinship, he will live for 100, like the example that Ibn Hajar gave, he will live to 100, and if he doesn't, he will live to 60, right? This in itself is true because we affirm the effect of the asbab. The ways and means are true and real, right? So, if you ate poison, you're going to die, right? If you don't eat poison, you're not going to die. Right? If you put your hand in the fire, your hand's going to burn. And if you don't, it's not going to burn. So the asbab have a true and real effect. Likewise, eating food, healthy food, eating bad food, all of this has an actual effect upon a person. So when we say that in the Lawhul Mahfuz, a person's written to live for 100 years, written amongst all of that is every single sabab or way or means that he took, that's part and parcel of him living for 100 years. So he did such and such. He was a righteous person. He did righteous actions. He kept the ties of kinship with all his family. He ate good food. He had fresh water. He had fresh air. He kept happy all the time. All of these things are ways and means which are true and real and actually have a real effect, because Allah made him like that. Allah made him to be like that. Right? And all of that is part and parcel of him living to 100 years, which is written in the Lawhul Mahfuz. Right? So in one sense, no one's lifespan increases or decreases from the point at which his time is to come. Right? He will live for 100 years. Right? But he lived to 100 years because he took certain ways and means that had an effect in him living 100 years. Do you understand? That's why we can say at the same time, without any contradiction, that a man's lifespan never will go beyond what is written for him. However, he took ways and means that led to his life being that long. Right? His life actually did increase. Right? He ate the right food. He drank fresh water. He took fresh air. He avoided danger. He always kept himself happy. He had patience, sabr on all the decrees that came to him. He didn't fall into stress. He didn't panic, whatever. All these ways and means, he kept, mixing with his family, his children, whatever. He had a good environment. All those things actually had an effect on his life being that long. So his life did increase, but it didn't increase. Do you understand? We can say this because we believe in the asbab. The ways and means and the asbab have an actual effect. Right? So we don't see any contradiction in saying that. In saying that a man, he will live to 100 and he will never live past 100. But this man actually had his life increased because of the ways and means he used whilst he was alive. And likewise to another person, we can say that it was decreed in Allah's knowledge, this man will live till 50. Right? And he will live to 50, he will die at 50 because he died of a heart attack. Why did he die of a heart attack? He died of a heart attack because of stress, because of eating bad, terrible food, of whatever. Right? So his life was actually decreased, but it wasn't decreased, if you know what I mean. Right? How can we say this at the same time? We can say this at the same time because we believe in the asbab, the ways and means. His life decreased because he had bad food, he had stress, and all the other things that actually did cause his life to decrease. But it didn't decrease from what Allah decreed it to be. Allah decreed this person to die at the age of 50, and He decreed upon him all the asbab and the ways and means in between that will lead to him dying at that particular age. Right? You understand? So that maybe will make it a bit more clear as to what we understand here. And as for what the angels have, when the angels have what they have, then as we said, it's like in mu'allaq, it's like conditional, it's like, suspended. And so they don't have the full, that is with the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that which is in their knowledge, that can be confirmed, blotted out, or, Okay, any other questions on that topic? Yes, yeah, that's right, yeah. So the question from a young boy, what's your name? Bilal. How old are you? Okay, so the question from Bilal, 11-year-old boy, good question. He said, so does that mean that therefore your actions determine what your life? And the answer is yes. This is what we're discussing, yeah. That whatever actions you perform, things like righteous deeds, good deeds, being good with your parents, being good with your relatives, being good with your cousins and so on and so forth, and keeping ties with them, visiting them, whatever else, this actually does have an effect it's something that contributes to your life being the length that it is. Right? And likewise, there are many other things, other ways and means as well that you can take. Yeah.
Perhaps another way to look at it is that we're being called by the angels on a yearly basis. The schools those are the schools that will be presented in front of you on the Day of Judgment. So it's kind of evidence to exactly what you did and what you didn't do.
Yeah.
Retain that, which obviously Allah has already knowledge of.
Yeah.
Perhaps a good way to look at it, I think.
Yeah, that's to do with a person's deeds being recorded. Right, so the scrolls that the angels write who who write his deeds, that's something else. Yeah, this is a separate issue. This is the angels writing his deeds, which will be his scroll on Yawm al-Qiyamah, which will be like a witness against him. Right? It will be one of the numerous forms of witness against him. Right? So his own soul will be a witness against him. His limbs will be a witness against him. The scrolls the angels wrote will be a witness against him. All these things will serve as a witness against an individual. So that writing of what the angels write as his deeds, that's just a record of his deeds. That's got nothing to do with the issue of al-Qadr. About the writing of the angels that we are speaking about is the Laylatul Qadr. Laylatul Qadr. That when they write down the decrees for the following year. Yes, so there's a question from Baltalk. If I do bad deeds, will that affect my lifespan? It comes back to the issue that we mentioned earlier on, and the hadith that we mentioned, where the Prophet said that indeed a person is prevented from rizq by way of a sin that he commits. Right? So deeds actually have an effect on your lifespan, but that effect is already written in the Lawhul Mahfuz. Right? So it is written that a person will do evil deeds, and those evil deeds are, in turn have an effect upon that individual, upon his rizq, upon his lifespan. So the answer is yes. And the answer to this comes back down to the issue of understanding the topic of the asbab, the ways and the means. That the ways and the means, they actually have an effect on an individual. So yes, you commit sins, that actually does affect your life. It doesn't mean that your life as written in the Lawhul Mahfuz will become longer or shorter, because that's fixed. It's fixed. But it means that the deeds you are doing will actually have an effect on your life. And that's part and parcel of Al-Qadr. Because Al-Qadr is the asbab as well. Right? Remember, Al-Qadr is Allah's knowledge of everything that will happen. And whatever happens, happens by way of the asbab. By way of the asbab. To put it another way, another example is, how did you come into existence? You came because you were born. How were you born? Right? You were born by way of your parents. Right? So you came about through asbab. There were ways and means that led to you coming to be. Right? So we believe in the effect of the asbab, and that's really the key to understanding this whole discussion of Al-Qadr. Al-Qadr on the one hand, the decrees, and the asbab that Allah has created by, which have effects. They have effects. So inshallah, okay, just a quick question from Paltalk. Can we just quickly list some in bullet points how you can increase your life? Well, again, as we said, your life will not increase beyond what is written in the Lawhul Mahfuz. Right? So that is the knowledge that is only with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, we have been ordered to take the ways and the means, which we call the asbab. And the asbab are part and parcel of Al-Qadr. To follow the ways and means are part and parcel of Al-Qadr. So what are the ways and means that the Messenger has mentioned that will lead to an increase in life and sustenance? Then from them is the hadith that we mentioned, that a person keeps the ties of kinship. That you keep the ties of kinship. In another hadith it is mentioned that a person, he has taqwa. That a person he does righteous deeds. In fact, these two are mentioned in the same hadith. Keep the ties of kinship and do righteous deeds. Now, these two, which are mentioned by the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to help a person increase his lifespan. Even though Allah knows when he will die, and his lifespan will never increase, if he takes these actions, then they are part and parcel of him living to the age that he is decreed to live at. Do you understand? It's very similar to the issue of saying, Allah knows whether a person is in paradise or hellfire, but then you have to do the actions. So Allah knows if a person is in paradise. But then, unless you do the actions of the people of paradise, you will not go to paradise. So you must do the actions of paradise. So likewise, Allah knows at what point you will die. Allah knows at what age you will die. Then you have to use the ways and the means. And all of that, and from those ways and means, as we mentioned, is to keep the ties of kinship, to do righteous deeds. And then there are other things like the worldly asbab that we said, to eat healthily, and to take all of the ways and means in terms of health, eating healthily, and the other things that we know in the worldly sense. All of these are part and parcel of a person living to the age that he's going to live, to avoid stress and to eat healthy, nutritious food and to avoid bad food and whatever else, all to avoid pollution, to avoid things that harm. All of this is part and parcel of the ways and means that we've been ordered to use, right, for our benefit. And all of that is in the ilm of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we've been ordered to take these ways and means. So inshallah we'll conclude our lesson here today. And so this kind of finishes our discussion of Al-Qadr, and we'll continue with the words of At-Tahawi that appear next, in which he kind of summarizes and stresses the importance of this issue. So with that, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.